Well, ICE Chief Thomas Homan testified on Capitol Hill recently. Democratic Congresswoman Nanette Berrigan of California decided she couldn't waste the opportunity, so she began berating him for the crime of doing what he is paid to do. According to the Congresswoman, ICE's enforcement of national laws is immoral. Watch this.
We love to talk about this issue about the MS-13 gangs. We love to paint immigrants as criminals. That is not the complete facts. And that is very offensive for me to see continuing to happen, is continuing to message this anti-immigrant agenda.
First of all, no one on this panel is anti-immigrant. We're law enforcement officers to enforce the law that you all enacted. So to sit there and say that we're anti-immigrant is wrong.
Well, we invited that non-genius member of Congress to come on the show and explain the reasoning behind her statement, but of course she declined. Instead, we're joined by New York attorney and illegal immigrant Cesar Vargas. Cesar, thanks for coming on.
Tucker, thank you so much for having me again.
I don't know why I find this has been the most amusing thing I think I've ever seen. So here's I guess she's a member of Congress, going head-to-head with the director of ICE and claiming that it is wrong for him to do what he is paid to do. What does she think ICE does?
Well, any law enforcement agency, their job is to keep us safe, correct? Their job is to ensure that community trusts law enforcement, to ensure everyone is safe, regardless of their immigration status.
No, it's to enforce the laws.
No,
yeah.
well, exactly, right? Why do we enforce the law? To keep us safe. Now, ICE is tripling the amount of people arrested without violating criminal records. So the congressman is right on that point, where not only is ICE going after the rapists, the murderers, they're going after grandma, they're going after
so does the law,
labor,
no, wait, hold on, you're the attorney. I've got a question for you. So the law says that ICE can only arrest people with certain kinds of criminal records or commit certain kinds of crimes? Is that what the federal law says?
Federal law says that Immigration Customs Enforcement has to detain people who violently violate laws in like murder, like anything like that. But the law says that ICE and any law enforcement agency has the discretion to pursue the most violent criminals. So ICE is going after the grannies instead of the murderers. ICE is going after the day laborers instead of the rapists. So ICE is not doing their job when they are just focusing on everyone instead of using our resources
So you're okay. So for example, hold on, you're here illegally, correct?
No. Like I had DACA, and now I'm in the process of changing my immigration status.
Okay.
So no.
Okay.
So we have to understand.
Okay.
I'm an attorney. Totally you're not, and your viewers are not. So I need to explain the law clearly to every single person.
You may be an attorney, but you're misstating a fact, which is that people who are here illegally are by definition violating federal law. And so ICE absolutely has a right, in fact, it's its charter to enforce federal law, so it has a right to detain them, and the United States government and its citizens have a right to deport them. Whether they choose to or not is another question. But you can't attack somebody for enforcing the law as written. By the way, as written by the Congress in which that member of Congress sits. So I don't know if they taught you this part in law school, but what she said is insane.
No, I think it's very clearly. Look, listen, ICE has a job to do. No question about it. The Congress has their job to do. And you're right, they haven't got their job done in years. They haven't passed immigration reform. They haven't passed proper
education. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
But I think it comes to the point of where we are at this moment, that we need to keep this nation safe. And ICE should go after people who violently threaten our security.
I don't know why I'm taking a lecture on ICE law from someone who broke our laws to come here. But hold on. If you think that that's true, then you're obviously not bothered by the president's emphasis on rounding up known members of a murderous street gang. But I bet you are bothered by that, right? Are you one of the people who, are you one of the animal rights activists who wept when he used the word animal to describe MS-13?
Well, listen, I think we should keep our nation safe. And law enforcement has their job to do, whether it's the NYPD, the LAPD, or ICE. They have a job to do. Now, the president is confusing two things, like many things. MS-13 is the product of the U.S. We created MS-13.
Oh, it's
just as we created the KKK.
Why does it always come down? You know, this is actually the one thing that does irritate me, so I want to cut this part of the conversation short because I don't want to get mad at you. But blaming the United States for fentanyl ODs, for MS-13, for the waves of people coming to this country illegally, in your description, it's always our fault.
No,
we deserve this.
It's the fact. Very different thing.
You said don't have a lecture.
It's a fact.
Hold on, wait.
We created in the 1980s when You just look it up.
I don't have any patience for this, so I'm not going to let you continue because you don't know what you're talking about. I don't want to mislead my viewers. But let me just ask you really quickly, if you think the job of ICE is to protect American citizens and they ought to go after violent criminals, then why wouldn't you be encouraging them to round up every MS-13 member in this country illegally and deport them tomorrow? But I bet you're not for that. I bet you're defending MS-13 like everybody else on your side,
no,
right?
I think if MS-13 or any gang member violently commits a crime, kills someone, they should spend the rest of their life in prison. That's what the law says, right?
Someone's a member, if you believe someone's a member of MS-13 and he's here illegally, you don't think that's enough to deport him?
Well, why are we going to really exacerbate a problem?
Okay, so I just want to reveal to our viewers where you're
They come over there and make people come back. You know, it's the logic that we need to see. We cannot exacerbate a problem by sending people who we created.
It's America's fault. Yeah, we created it. What do you mean we? You're not even a citizen. Anyway, Cesar, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
We're not going to be a stupid country anymore. We've stopped it. We're not going to be. And you can say what you want, but I think border security and security general is a great issue for the Republican Party.
Hey, you know what? I actually think it's beyond Republicans. I think the average American wants border security. I think that's the most confusing issue on the Democrats. I think everybody really wants some security in the southern border, and they're concerned about it. They're crazy to fight the president on the border.
Well, you kept saying there are the majority of Californians don't want sanctuary cities, and then all these cities started to vote against it. Let's bring in Tomi Lahren, who lives in California. She's a Fox News contributor and can weigh in on this. Why is border security so important to the folks who do live in California, those who support the president?
Well, as Californians and other border states, we understand that we are the most vulnerable when it comes to these issues, but it's not just us. We just deal with the problem more close to home. This is an American issue. As Brian said, when I hear our president double down on border security, of course that's going to be a winning agenda item for this president and those who choose to support border security. What we really need to ask is, why are the Democrats so against it? Why do the Democrats not believe in the integrity of our borders, our laws, and protecting the American people? That's the question that needs to be asked, not why is Trump doubling down? Of course he's doubling down. This president believes in a secure border.
So, Tommy, let me ask you something. There's a push now with Senator Cory Gardner and some moderates in the House to get something done on DACA before the midterms. The thought was no one's going to do anything else because they're just going to go to the midterms with what they've done or haven't done. What do you think about that? The president may be going there and saying, give me the $25 billion for the wall, I'll give you DACA, and I'll go back for chain migration, go back for the lottery. Do you think that benefits him or us?
I think this president has said multiple times that he's willing to compromise, but I think what's most important, not only for President Trump, but for the Americans that voted for President Trump because of his promise to build the wall, is that before we start dealing with those that are already here illegally, that we have border enforcement. That has to be number one. The American people have to trust that first, and then we can have a bigger conversation about immigration reform. But I think to do it piecemeal, I think it's a mistake. I think this president needs to hold his ground on this, and the American people will stand behind him.
Which means nothing gets done, though.
It might mean that nothing gets done immediately, but I think that there's going to be pressure on the Republicans and even on the Democrats to do something, and not just piece by piece, but have real, true immigration reform for the first time in a long time. That's what the American people want. And us as voters, we have to make sure that we make that clear and we vote on that issue.
Well, Democrats, in resisting this president on the wall, have tried to characterize his policies as inhumane, which means when a photo surfaced of caged migrants just a couple of days ago, they went over the edge. Jon Favreau, former speechwriter for President Obama, tweeted, "This is happening right now, and the only debate that matters is how we force our government to get these kids back." Children in cages. As humane kids in cages, and it's got to be Donald Trump. Turns out, oops, these photos are from 2014 when Barack Obama was president.
Well, it turns out that many on the other side are not concerned with the truth so long as they can attack President Trump. This was a great misstep on their part, and it just goes to show that the level of partisan politics in this country has reached such an extreme level that the truth really doesn't matter anymore. You have an image, you circulate it, it's what President Trump calls fake news. It looks pretty bad for them. And moving forward, I hope that as Democrats and Republicans, we can do what's right and we can stand for our beliefs and not just pick the side of who we vote voted for or our partisan line. That's not what this country's based on.
All right. Well, mainstream media heard the story about Cindy Garcia's husband of 15 years. He was deported back to Mexico. Mainstream media runs with it and says, family broken up, husband sent back to Mexico. This is inhumane. This is wrong. Listen to the wife being interviewed. And I don't think mainstream media was expecting how calm she was and her lack of animosity. Listen.
I am not upset at our government due to the fact that I am a U.S. citizen and that our laws come first. Our laws are just broken and need to be fixed. But I can't be mad at Trump for doing his job, because that is his job, to protect us as U.S. citizens from criminals.
Oops, I never expected that answer. If you're on CNN, you don't expect that answer, do you?
Of course you don't, but I think this just goes to show that legal immigrants and even family members of illegal immigrants also believe in border security. There's a reason people come over to this country and they want to live the American dream. It's not just for the opportunities that we have, but it's for the safety that we promise our citizens. So legal immigrants look at our border and they want it to be secure as well. That's why they live in this country. In part, is so they can feel safe and secure. And there is not an American out there that doesn't believe we need immigration reform. She was exactly right. It's heartbreaking to see families broken up like this. But the fact that she appreciates our country and our rule of law speaks a lot to the character of this person.
But, Tommy, it's amazing. They say about 70% of immigration reform we all agree on. It's the 30% with the border wall and DACA and the illegals here already, which stops the whole process. We keep the couples together, those people that marry somebody in the, from another country. All that stuff just takes too long and is too costly. The line is too long for people to do it legally, but we all got hung up on the stuff we don't agree on.